Today's Friday. You know what that means? Cyclones play tomorrow. Iowa State will be taking on Baylor. We're going to cover that today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's a Friday. Let's have a great day here, cover some Cyclone basketball as we get to the end of, it's basically, it's no longer really holiday season. And it is weird. It's a Friday. What are the vibes? Are we working? What's the deal? Doesn't matter. Today, it's all about Cyclone basketball, and I can't wait to break it down. We're going to start, obviously, with the Bears, the Baylor Bears, that is. What are the Bears individually that we have to look out for in this game? What does TJ Otzelberger think about this game in the second segment? And then finally, to round it out, what does Iowa State need to do to bring home the win in Hilton Coliseum tomorrow? And all of that will be coming right after, obviously, my thoughts kind of intermixed there. But first, before we can get to that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And let's get started. Let's not dilly-dally anymore, okay? Let's talk about the Iowa State Cyclones taking on the Baylor Bears in what could be a great showdown here in Ames, Iowa on Saturday, okay? I know you're excited because I'm excited. I always get fired up when I get to talk about, obviously the Cyclones in general, but this team in particular is electric, okay? And we're going to talk more about our team, the Cyclones, here at Locked On Cyclones in the third segment. That's coming down the line. Don't worry. But first thing we got to do, obviously, is assess the opponent, assess the situation. What are we dealing with here? Is this something that we're going to run away with? Is this something we got to come prepared? What do we have on our hands here? Well, Baylor. Currently 9-3, 1-0 in the conference. Pretty solid record, I'm not going to lie. I went back and watched their condensed game, which I do love watching condensed games. I don't know if you guys have seen these. This might be a new age tech thing that I'm just stumbling into. Really cool. You do miss out on some elements. Of course, the full broadcast provides a lot more detail and insights and such. But condensed games, really, really cool. Regardless, I watched the condensed game of Baylor, Utah, in which Baylor won 81-56. I thought I'd get some eyes, some firsthand experience. Not quite boots on the ground, but definitely an up-close and personal look of the Baylor Bears instead of just talking about them, looking at the box score here. And this team is certainly dangerous. Let's put it that way. I'll get into predictions at the end here, but this Baylor team could be a problem. Let's put it that way. They got some starters on this team, and they've got some backups on this team that are very good. Let's start with the backups because I don't know why. Just feels like it makes sense. Robert Wright, the third, number one, scored 15 points against Utah. And this was a game when it felt like Baylor just had their way in every facet of it. So I'm not going to really dive into what happened in this game and say that's a really good predictor. But I'd say a game against Utah is probably a little bit of a better predictor than a game against, Tarleton State. Really? They have played some pretty solid opponents, though. They lost to number 6 Gonzaga, number 11 Tennessee, and number 25 UConn. So all of their losses have come to top 25 opponents. But overall, the most recent game being against Utah, I'm going to draw some conclusions from that. I do have that they are ranked 16th in KenPom, where Iowa State's ranked 5th. So we do have that edge on them, but this is a very good team. Okay, this is not a team that we can just be like, oh, don't worry about Baylor. Remember, they won the national championship a few years ago. And this is, yes, a different team, but it's not like Baylor football and Baylor basketball, two very different things. Different sports even, you might even say. So something we have to look out for. And they got some A-tier names here in this starting lineup. Josh Ogianwona. I'm sorry. Norshad Omier, VJ Edgecombe, Jaden Nunn, and Jeremy Roach. Dogs. All of these guys very good at basketball. I'm not going to lie. That highlight, or the condensed game, I suppose, was so much fun, actually. Baylor, very fun team to watch, and it's why I honestly can't wait for this game. Um, but I will say this one thing, right off the top of my head. I mean, we just have to look out for Edgecombe. Number 7 for Baylor. I've got it up here. He's a freshman. Okay, he is a freshman. As is that? Yeah. Yep. That is Edgecombe there. I can't see because my screen is a little bit small. Here we go. Yeah, Edgecombe's a freshman. So either way, I'm not going to get into it because I'm a little bit behind. I don't have the screen. So either way, Edgecombe is a dog. Edgecombe is, scored 19 in their win over Utah, as did a couple other guys that went up to double digits there. Omier, Roach, and then the guy off the bench, Robert Wright, number 1, which is what I was looking for. Bang. Sorry about that. That is called unprofessionalism, but sometimes I guess that just happens. Robert Wright, also a freshman. So Robert Wright and Edgecombe, the freshman duo for Baylor, both very, very good at the game. And then Jeremy Roach coming off, coming out of Duke, is someone we have to look out for as well. This team seems to flow really, really well. And I'll talk more about key ideas, I guess, that I drew from their game against Utah, and in what ways does Iowa State need to be prepared, conceptualizing, on a bigger scale, what do we need to look out for? But player-wise, Edgecombe and Roach, obviously 2 of the bigger names there. Omier, dog, and then Robert Wright off the bench. Those are the 4 guys that they're they scored the most points in the game against Utah, and you're probably thinking, this guy's just box score watching. This is not analysis. I watched the game. Like, this is what happened. Like, the box score was pretty true. They had 8 blocks in this game as well, and it felt like it was just really constant. Granted, I was watching the condensed game, so it was actually like there was less times between the blocks. But overall, it felt like every time Utah was getting in there, they were blocking their shots, and their 2 blocks, kind of leaders came from OG. I want to get it right. OG Nwana and Omier both had 3. Okay, and then some ones trickled off to the side there. So those guys on the inside going to be a bit of a problem, clearly. And then, overall shot 28% from 3, 40% from the field. Not an insane clip or anything here, but just watching Edgecombe was unreal. Okay, this guy's really good. And honestly, Roach pulled his weight as well. So if you wanted to narrow it from 4 down to 2, I'd take Edgecombe and Roach as 2 guys to look out for. Not to say that anyone else can't pull their weight or have a breakout game or anything along those lines, because they very well can. They very, very well can. It's the same thing we saw with Chatfield against Colorado, right? Like, these guys they're D1 players for a reason. So just got to be aware of that. But Edgecombe and Roach, both going to be absolute dogs in this game. It's something we have to look out for. But let's not just only talk about what I think. Okay, we've also got a head coach here named TJ Otzelberger that knows what he's talking about. Media asked him about this game, and we'll cover that coming up right after this. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome in. We got to talk TJ Ott's thoughts on the Cyclones taking on the Baylor Bears. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for listening every single day, making this your first listen. I don't think I put that in the first segment, but if you are still here, you're a real one. And you're probably here to hear 2 different words, but they sound the same, about what TJ thought of the Baylor Bears and how the Cyclones are going to attack this game. Um, a couple he had some actual players that he pointed out. Obviously, Wright coming off the bench, as I mentioned, big, something that we just have to be very, very aware of, and especially as a freshman, making a lot of noise there. That's a big deal. And then Omir, as I mentioned as well, Norchad Omir put up 15 points against Utah, excuse me. And he said something about leads the league in double doubles. I did not fact check that. It's just really hard for me to find that information. If you know how to find those stats, I love diving into stats. I just don't know where to go. ESPN seems to fall short there with that at times. That being said, he what was interesting was the press conference with TJ was very much not centered around Baylor, which I thought was interesting because we're playing Baylor tomorrow. That being said, a lot of the questions came around, his thoughts with the whole new JUCO situation and Curtis Jones. What did he make of Chatfield in his game against Colorado? And obviously, I'm going to talk about those things because that's the name of the eggs of this segment here. Otz's thoughts, which is a really sick name. I didn't even do that on purpose. That might be something we got to keep rolling with here. Maybe we get him on the show. Huh? That'd be sick. Otz's thoughts, not just about this game, but also in general. So, as far as Curtis Jones goes, he said kind of along the lines of, we're not really sure how this is going to go down yet. And so let's not put the cart ahead of the horse. Let's not worry so much about that. I'm paraphrasing here. He said, I'm certainly wanting to give Curtis Jones every possible route he can take and every door he could go through. But we don't really know what's going to happen with that. And so the best thing we can do that we can guarantee will get, Kurt to his best spot every day is to come into practice every single day, work as hard as we can every single day, become a better, like this, that, and the other thing. And so on that front specifically, great answer. I don't even really know what's going on with all that. I've seen you guys ask in the comments. He's on his fourth year of eligibility with Iowa State. How does that all work? And I think that's kind of what the court's figuring out, because unfortunately, I don't really have the answers for you. I just know that it appears to me that he would, in fact, have another year of eligibility if things pass the way that they have been presented. I don't really understand if they haven't. I thought they had, to be completely fair. But, the courts are all weird. So that's kind of what TJ was saying. We aren't really 100% sure. And they asked Curtis, the same thing. And he was like, look, we're not really sure. We're just attacking game by game, getting better day by day. And I love that. That is a great mentality to have. That's kind of how I go about day-to-day procedures. So big fan of them for that mentality. And TJ kept that one pretty short. He said he had talked with Kurt about that, and something they'll keep an eye on as they move forward. But it's not their main concern right now, because guess what? Their main concern beating Baylor. And then they got 3 games in the next week or so, a little more, obviously. But one thing at a time here. And then obviously was asked about Chatfield's performance, and he said, Chatfield's a huge asset for the Cyclones. The depth he adds and the iron sharpens iron component of it is pretty big. And I couldn't agree anymore, to be completely honest. I think, when you look at Jefferson and everything I've said, really good at basketball. Then you look at Deshaun Jackson, also really good at basketball. You've got Chatfield coming off the bench, and he I don't want to say he hadn't made any noise, because that just feels like I'm dogging on him, which I'm not. But he was quieter than the other two, certainly. And TJ was basically saying to have a third guy, not only for depth reasons, because he talked about how often they're switching guys out, and basically you eliminate weak spots in that, when you have more depth, essentially, which is, yep, that makes sense. But for the course of, a 30-game season or whatever, 20 of these games being conference, and they're all going to be tough games. None of these are going to be gimmies, which is awesome. I love that. Absolutely love that. But it's just tough. It's hard on the players. And so having a little bit of depth there is super nice. It really is. And I think the biggest thing he said was I think that this taught Chatfield, like what he's capable of. He obviously knows that he's a good basketball player, but he's very self-critical. And that I think every athlete ever can relate to that. If you're listening and you're an athlete, you know that oftentimes you're significantly harder on yourself than your coaches ever are. I guess not every single athlete has had that exact same experience, but definitely the culture here at Iowa State is a super, super inclusive, and I honestly just think that the culture here at Iowa State is one of the best in the country. But you can clearly see it there when he's saying like, "Hey, we just want him to go out there, give the best effort he can, really fight in every moment of that he's on the floor, give his all, and we know he's good enough that things are going to happen." And clearly they did, against Colorado, which we have talked about, but he said it's a big thing, for the confidence of Sheffield moving forward and just what the Cyclones can do with that, obviously. So I've got his stats pulled up here for that game. Only played 20 minutes, went 3 for 4 from the field, 3 from 7 from the free throw line, and had 7 offensive rebounds, all of his rebounds being on the offensive side. 2 blocks, and then 9 points, obviously, was his final, the 3 of 4 and the 3 of 7. You can do the math there. He got to 9. But 7 offensive rebounds is a lot, certainly a lot. And that's kind of, to transition, it's a great point. That's where TJ said that Baylor is something they have to look out for is their offensive rebounding is very good. I will say against Utah, I did not personally think that was the case, but I am only watching one game. And I did not watch, they watch tape like crazy because it's like kind of, well, it's TJ's job, obviously. But I didn't think that they were significantly bolstered by offensive rebounds against Utah. To be completely fair, and stats are about as fair as it gets because they're numbers. They can't be altered. They only won the offensive rebound game by 3 rebounds against Utah, 11-14. So, I don't know. I mean, what is that worth? You tell me. I don't feel like that was a lot, but it's something that TJ's, it's got, he's got it on his radar. He's got it in the players' minds. In the presser with Jones and Chatfield, they asked like, what are you guys looking? What's kind of the point of emphasis for this game? And Chatfield was like, hey, their offensive rebounding is really, really good. Something we have to be very aware of moving forward. In this game, this, that, and the other thing, and so that is where their mindset is at, is largely on the offensive rebounding, and then obviously guys like Wright, Nomir, and rightfully so. This team is good. This team is very good. Like I said, 16th in KenPom, 25th AP, and we're, I think, 3 AP and 5 KenPom. So a little bit of discrepancy, but by no means are we facing Morgan State here. No disrespect to Morgan State, but Baylor is probably significantly better than Morgan State. So playing at home will certainly help. That is for sure. But the question now, obviously, that we've broken down what TJ thinks, and we've broken down what key bears we have to pay attention to. The key to Iowa State winning is obviously different. And we'll have to break that down right after this. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? It definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year, 2025. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore. I already saved a ton. That was big. Shout out Rocket Money there. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Iowa State facing Baylor this weekend, men's basketball. It will go down in Hilton Coliseum, and it's going to be pretty much must watch. This is going to be awesome as we kick off conference play here. I cannot wait. I seriously can't. every game is going to be just absolute cinema. Grab your popcorn. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you guys for coming in every day. And be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. What is Iowa State's key to victory in beating Baylor? It's a good question. It really is. I honestly think, looking at the numbers here and looking at the whatever, and honestly, before I get to the actual key here, one thing I found interesting, Baylor shot 32 threes against Utah 32 times. They shot 28%, but they shot 32 threes. For context, Iowa State shot 18 against Colorado. So something you should, maybe just keep in mind there. And in my opinion, the key to victory is likely we have to finish plays on offense, I guess. It sounds really dumb because basically what I'm saying is score more points than Baylor, okay? But what I drew from the Baylor game I watched against Utah and then what I've seen against, all of Iowa State's games, Baylor is a very good rebounding team, yes. And so if we miss, we're losing out on points there more times than we're not, which is how basketball works, yes. But also their blocks stood out to me. And it was only 8, which is still like kind of like crazy saying only 8. I think that just it was drawn out of proportion because of Utah having 8 blocks. I don't have the stats for Iowa State's blocks numbers up right now, but 8 blocks. And it felt like it was just always at the wrong times for Utah. Baylor always got them at the right times. And so I have no doubt Keyshawn Gilbert will somehow find a way to maneuver the ball behind the backboard, up off the rotating scoreboard around Hilton, and then it'll bounce off some lady's popcorn and whatever, and then fall in. I have no doubt. He is a wizard with that basketball. And I've said it before, and I'll say it probably every single time that Iowa State plays. It's amazing, truly. But if Baylor can somehow just start blocking everything, that's going to be a major problem because then they're probably going the other way with it and we're leaving points on the board and they're scoring. So we can't have that. That just simply does not add up. The other thing that I think is going to be pretty big is going to be Iowa State's three-point shooting. But I think that's pretty much, I mentioned this obviously, yesterday. You can't really control how well you shoot. So for me to make that a point of emphasis just feels like, all right, well, yeah, obviously we'd rather shoot better than shoot worse. Obviously, that makes complete sense. I think Iowa State's rebounding going to be big, and steals. I think that's kind of where Iowa State's bread and butter really is. Realistically, you know this. You're a big fan of Cyclones. You watch the show. Obviously, points off turnovers, points off steals, going to be big for the Cyclones. Just all year, that's kind of their identity. But in general, that's where I'm gonna. Let me say this. These last two that I kind of have floating around in my head are where we're going to make our money. For one thing, Baylor seems to get really confused on defense at times. They'll do switches and it really just feels like they're leaving their assignments. I don't know. I don't want to be mean, but it sounds like to me, it looks like their assignments aren't really rock solid at times. So schematically wise, Iowa State has a very strong advantage there, in my opinion. I think in the half court, Iowa State is a really strong offense. I think that there's a lot more value in a half court offense than in a super fast paced game for Iowa State. Not that we can't do both, but I do think we're better in a half court offense when we slow things down. And against a Baylor where I'm going to say it, but I'm not a basketball coach, so keep that in mind. It seems to me like their defense struggles at times with a switch. They get mismatches quite often. They forget. It's not like they forget almost who they're guarding, it feels like. I don't know. I'm not trying to. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, I read all the comments. I just feel like that's how it goes. So I think schematically, Iowa State has a very strong advantage there. We got a lot of really, this team's just so good. So the assist game is obviously there and being able to finish. And then the other one to me is they shoot really well. So obviously closing out on threes, but we can't be too over aggressive, which I've talked about with this team. It seems like that can be a bit of an issue. because against Utah, Baylor would obviously shoot well, and so Utah would cover. It'd be a little bit more aggressive out on the perimeter. And it was the weirdest thing. It really was. I'm going to tell a quick story. I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to. When I played in 8th grade basketball, 8th grade basketball, whenever I touched the ball, basically my coach would say, do not shoot it, because I was so bad. But there was one time that I was driving into the lane, forgot what I was doing. My feet were completely crisscrossed, twisted. Basically, imagine like I was facing the top of the key, turned around, obviously didn't want to lose my pivot foot, so my feet are completely crossed, falling away from the hoop, threw it in off the backboard. My coach was like, all right, we just got 2 points. And that's on JV B team. All of that to say, it felt like that at times with Baylor. They would certainly get into binds where they're off balance and it's, things are out of control slightly. They're double teamed. And then all of a sudden, bang, pass into a wide open guy on the inside. And did they kill Utah with that? Not necessarily, but it was something they were good at. And it's something I noticed. So we do need to guard the 3 ball because they were pretty good at shooting threes. I mean, they shot so many. They obviously some are going to go in. But overall, they were pretty good at shooting threes. And so we have to guard that. But guess what? If we overcommit to the 3 ball, we're probably going to get burned on the inside. So we have to be aware of that. Okay? Now, all of that being said, everything, all this fluff that I've just thrown out into the universe and spoken into this microphone, at the end of the day, I really do think that Iowa State will come away with this win. We'll extend the home win streak. Great team in Baylor, great team, and a lot of really good basketball players as well, to be completely honest. But I don't know I guess I'm not sure what the final score will be, but I'm going to take Iowa State 89 to Baylor's 74. Seems like that's probably about what it'll be, or I'm guessing it will come down to the absolute wire, last second bucket type of deal. But Baylor, very, very good. Iowa State needs to be ready for this. I hope you're ready for this because I know I am. This is going to be an awesome game to watch. I cannot wait. And as we go with conference basketball here, I mean, look at us. Look at us go. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be electric. Every moment is going to be worth watching. That being said, thank you for watching. Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Be sure to subscribe so I can, keep my job, to quote Drake Toll, and also so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.